Greetings, I'm Kedar from rptv News. Join us today for an exclusive interview with Samuel Kisitu. In the heart of Toronto's diverse urban landscape, Samuel Kisitu, a Toronto resident and a refugee from Uganda since 2019, embodies resilience amidst the trials and tribulations faced by many African refugees seeking refuge in the city. Today, we delve into Samuel's journey as he shares his poignant reflection on housing struggles, community resilience, and the unwavering spirit that propels him forward. As a refugee in Toronto, Samuel Kisitu's quest for stable housing during the unforgiving winter months sheds light on the harsh realities faced by many newcomers to the city. From navigating the complexities of Ontario Work's assistant to finding solace in temporary shelters, such as the Dominion Church International. Samuel's story resonates with the challenges and triumphs of the African refugee experience. In 2019, as a refugee claimant, Samuel embraced diverse roles, from serving as a disinfectant worker in subways to becoming a caregiver for disabled adults amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. His remarkable journey caught the attention of the Toronto Star, which featured two compelling stories of his impactful work in 2021. Throughout his journey, Samuel has been an active participant in community initiatives, expanding his network and advocacy efforts within the African community. From collaborations with civic organizations like Jane and Finch Action Against Poverty to his involvement with Migrant Alliance for Change. Samuel's commitment to fighting for tenants' rights and advocacy for equity and human rights has earned him recognition, including the prestigious Equity and Human Rights Award and Toronto nomination. Samuel's narrative illuminates the stark realities of Toronto's refugee crisis. With emergency shelters at capacity, he has witnessed firsthand the dire consequences of housing shortages. As we embark on this interview journey with Samuel Kisitu, let us heed his powerful message. We are the leaders of the future, and the future is today. Together, we explore the complexities of family dynamics, the strain on community resources, and the profound impact of solidarity amidst adversity. Join us as we delve into Samuel's reflections on the resilience of Toronto's African refugee community and the transformative power of hope in the face of uncertainty. Now let's go to the interview.
My name is Samuel Kisitu, aka Freeman. I am coming from Uganda. I'm a Ugandan citizen, and I came here in 2019 September, seeking refugee because of my political affiliation, belonging to the People Power movement and the National Unity Platform, headed by our leader, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. He's also known as Bobby Wine. I arrived here and to find protection, to find refugee. I arrived in the heart of Toronto, where I found a refugee shelter. It's called a homeless shelter for the homeless. That's Cornerstone Men's Shelter. It's at Yvonne and Orchid around. So that's where I had my first 2 months, and from the shelter, with the help of Ontario Works assistance to find housing, I found a room for rent in the northwest Toronto, that is Jane and Finch area. That is where I first settled, where I opened and looked for myself, and I now see myself starting again to build a home away from home. I have a big story around this, as I also appreciate that everybody has a story. I appreciate your story, and this is my story. As I've mentioned that when I got the help of Ontario Works and found a room, I want to mention that I found a crisis before the refugee housing crisis that has been seen covering the media. Personally, I was given an assignment to find a room of around 600. But to find that room in Toronto, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because of the cost of living in Toronto, the cost of housing, which has really turned the left, that gone bad. So I was only able to find a basement, which I later knew or happened to know that it was a converted pantry. It was only enough, the space in there, I could only throw there my mattress and a rug and nothing else. And unfortunately, it was not heated. They had no heating installation. I got this place in November, which was winter time, and by the time of December, as temperatures, the temperatures went so much bad. I saw myself, freezing in this room. I had it, and my landlord gave me a small heating, gadget, which one day broke down, and I saw myself trying to cover everything on me to see that I make that night the following morning. What am I sending? Which message do I want to paint with this? There was a crisis before the crisis was seen on the media. Some people have been struggling, and a number of them are really newcomers. A number of them are new immigrants seeking refugee, asylum seekers, like myself. I came with a lot of luggage on my mind, on my heart, on my shoulders. I'm a father of 3 children, of course, a husband of 1 wife. But I had left my wife pregnant, and because she was pregnant, she needed my help. Now, picture me in a situation where I have just arrived. I don't have a job yet. I've not got my work permit, and I've just got a house to rent, and the money is not enough for rent itself. What about feeding? What about phone bills, and what about the responsibility I left back home? I saw myself behind rent. By the time December closed to the new year of 2020, January, I was seeing myself behind rent. I just talked to the landlord. Let my last month rent be my cover the month of December, and then I saw myself finding my way out of the room. And if you ask me where was I planning to go, I wasn't planning to go to the shelter because that time I had found the refugee shelters, what we call the refugee shelters, for example, Sojourn House, which is accommodating refugees and facilitating them as refugees with the plans of next steps. I did get that chance. Now, I am that person I went to the homeless shelter, a shelter just helping somebody to have a roof on their heads and find where to go the next morning. So it means that I was out of place. That is the right word I can use. I was with different people who had their own issues. Others with, struggling with their mental health. Others were struggling with drugs. And the place was smoky. I mean, full of smoke. I don't smoke. I don't booze. So I was having this environment and asking myself, where do I go from here? So when I got into this converted pantry I was renting, I had no plans of going back to the shelter. Even though I was behind rent, I was not having plans to go back to the shelter. But I luckily enough, I was trying to build a community around me, researching or searching to find. I searched and found the Ugandan community in Toronto, and the Ugandan community in Toronto, they were majorly, or they are majorly, accommodated by Dominion Church International Toronto. It's a one-stop center where you find them. It's a church, yes, but to me it's a community. It's a home. That church, I asked the pastor that, Pastor, I'm seeing myself behind rent. I cannot go further with this rental because of the cost and because of its condition of not having heating system. So I asked the pastor, after really I'd identified there were some extensions of office extensions within the church. I want to say the pastor's office, the boardroom, the storage room, the media room, and these rooms, to me, they were more accommodative to me because of this, especially the heating condition that was friendly to human living. So I asked myself, Pastor Eddie Jumba, that can I asked him to allow me to use the storage room to just throw there my mattress. Of course, I didn't have much, furniture. I just had my mattress. He allowed me. I didn't have even a bed. He allowed me to use the room and, see my next steps, see myself have the work permit, have a job, and, start again. That was January. As I was struggling to find a job here and there, settle in, being asked with the help of, I want to appreciate the help of, the employment counselor who was helping me, edit my resume, send to employers, and waiting for responses. But the time rotated from January to February and March. In March, we had, it started like rumors that, hey, there's this type of disease, which before we identify that it's COVID, we, through our WhatsApp groups, like communication, our networking, our WhatsApp groups, now we see signs from China, people affected by COVID-19 before we really confirmed that, it's COVID-19. Like we saw this information circulating, disseminated by people, by our neighbors, community members who could saturate these videos of people struggling with this virus. Before we knew that before we saw this, some of the people in Canada affected by the virus, by the signs and symptoms of COVID-19, we didn't know what we were not sure of what the world will turn around. how the world will fall apart, how things would fall apart. We didn't know. But as things started worsening, we had the Premier addressing Ontario and stating the stay-at-home order. We had the closure of the church. We had the closure of public places, including the hotels. Now, I want to inform you that when the Premier Dogford stated the stay-at-home order, my home was church. And the arrangement for me to stay in church was kind of, can I say, special arrangement, which was not publicized within even the church community. It was even kind of making news, embarrassing, to see that somebody sleeps in the church. One would not believe that the shelters would be full, or one would really fall behind rent or fail to pay his rent and see himself, facing rent eviction, or it sounded like there is a second chance, but I want the world to know that people were struggling with the cost of housing silently. Now, I stayed in the church, and we not just sleeping, but contemplating on what are my next steps. Where do I go from here as a person? If a person doesn't know where he comes from and where he is, if he doesn't know where he comes from, if he doesn't know where he is, he cannot get anywhere. He will fail to forge where to go. Upon me, I had to understand that I come from Uganda and looked for Ugandan community where we share the same language, cultures, and shared struggles. As I mentioned, as I'm speaking here now, if we look at the refugees or people in exile, people seeking asylum, we should remember that they are, if you think about immigration, they are push factors. And those are the factors. To me, it was political issues or political belonging. To others, it is their sexuality. We've just had the signing up of the anti-homosexuality bill by Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the current president of Uganda, and the 40-year-old dictator. I want to mention that our struggles have put us together to forge an answer to the question, where do we go from here? So to forge a future for us, I happen to feel that I have integrated socially to find the community where I speak the same language. Now we expand to the African community, as we also expand to the Canadian community at large. And the issues that affect our neighborhoods affect us all. In my journey of community building, I have seen myself in the church. I have seen myself with the groups, with the civic organizations like Jen and Finch Action Against Poverty. I have seen myself with the organizations fighting for us, like a Migrant Workers Alliance for Change, asking for, fighting for rights of workers. Of course, myself as a worker, Workers Action Center, ECON, fighting for tenants' rights. I have also seen myself finding other organizations like Reset or Camp Reset, and also learning what's in the city of Toronto. The equity, the Access Equity and Human Rights Award event that happens every year, recognizing for people who do extraordinary work for to lift to lift their people, to lift justice, to lift fairness, to lift access to social services. I have associated with different groups, finding the People Power Movement or the NUP, National Unity Platform, Canada chapter, to continue the cause of liberating us here and back home. We remember, as myself, a student of African nationalism, I know the role of diaspora in the liberation movements. Liberating our countries from the colonial rule to finding independence, and now we have dictatorial governments. So there is the role of diaspora, and I am part of the diaspora. So I have seen myself with all those organizations. What those organizations have helped me is to integrate socially. Also, thinking about going back to school, the University of Toronto, this transition year program, a program which helps people who have been out of school for some time but cannot, compete with others for direct entry at the University of Toronto. That program, the transition year program, helped me to go back to school, to see that I find an education, a second career. Formerly, I am a teacher, but I didn't, in my struggles of integrating economically, I didn't find a job in the teaching field. But I have seen myself with working as a personal support worker, or working as a community, a community. Working in the community, helping others, including the newcomers. So when I came here, I did not only find a place, but I found a purpose, that we are I found myself a purpose, learning that we are the leaders of the future, and the future is today. So from just a newcomer, I am now considered as one of the community leaders. Last year we had the City of Toronto organized a huge event to recognize groups of organizations and individuals who have done extraordinary work in their communities during COVID-19. I was one of those people considered as the City of Toronto's community champions, and I received the community champion award, as you can see this pin. So all that is to inform you that I am informing you that I have integrated socially, but my journey of integrating economically is still a long journey. It's still a long journey to see that now I have a full-time job and I have maybe a vacation, you know. I have I have a dream that one day I will own a house from my job, from my savings, from my paycheck. But I am living a time when my income, when my bills are more than my income. And that is really bothering me. At a time when I want to reunite with my family, as I struggle with these bills, days like Family Day really bring a lot of questions on how my family, how they are living without me, or I'm living without them. And as I look forward to see that I reunite with my family, questions come that if I struggled to pay for one-bedroom apartment as me, Kisitu, if I failed to pay for one-bedroom apartment as an individual, Samuel Kisitu, what about that time when I need a 3-bedroom apartment, when I have reunited with my family, 3 children and my wife? Those questions go unanswered, and they create a lot of, can I call it imposter syndrome, or anxieties, or depression. They are stressing moments of what the future would look like for me, the future of housing, how it I ask myself of the question, how did the rent in Toronto go bad to this extent? And also, those questions don't make me just stay back, but they are the questions that inspire me or push me out of my comfort and go to the streets to see my brothers and sisters who are on the streets, to help them, or to help them have their answers. To help them find an answer to their questions too. Because as me, I am struggling, but I know where I have knocked, and I have housing applications for rent. For example, rent to year income housing subsidy, which is taking 10 years. But these are the people who don't know where to start. Only what they want is just a shelter to start their life. I am humbled by those moments when we had to mobilize the communities to open their doors. Was it around July of 2023 here this year, when we had the cries of our brothers and sisters, the African refugees who were facing, who faced it rough, who bared the brunt of the shelters of the city of Toronto getting full to capacity, we had to do something about the situation. We mobilized all community groups, group leaders, and community members. We asked people to open their houses, to open their homes, to allow our brothers and sisters who are named the refugees. For them, they are our brothers and sisters from Africa, to allow them to have, a roof upon their heads, whether in the couch, whether a mat in the living room, or sleep on the carpets, just not to face the harsh weather when it was hitting during the summers. I want to tell you, it was not friendly. Today, the temperatures are freezing, and no one can bear to stay outside, sleep outside. So, my journey has made me a wounded healer, one who understands the situations, one who understands the problems. I have a slogan: my community, my concern. And my community's concerns are my concerns. So I am part of the mobilizing the community to forge solutions, to see that we can make a collective home away from home. Thanks to Dominion Church, where I have served in different capacity as a servant leader, we had to have our boots on the ground to see that we opened the church doors, and we had people sleep in the church. And other churches which have really played a role in getting our brothers and sisters from the streets to homes, to find homes, but had to find a temporary stay in the church. I want to remember a moment when the churches themselves were full to capacity. The church, which could only accommodate 150 or 200 people, at one time it had more than 400 people. And others were still coming, but the church had to put a notice that we are full to capacity. In the same church, I slept alone like this. I wondered, 4 years after telling my story, 3 years from 2021 after telling my story, what policymakers would do with these stories? Are they not seen? Are they not read? Because I took the courage to sacrifice my identity, to sacrifice my privacy as an individual, to share a story of us. But all my aim was to see that something changes. In these conversations, when you talk to some staff from the city of Toronto, this is when they mentioned that they oversighted this crisis, this housing crisis, years ago. And what did they do about the situation? When you look at the media, Canada considered to be a safe haven. And the question is that, is Canada still a safe haven? We had a refugee die in the tent in a shelter in Mississauga. What does that paint? It is rough. It is disappointing for somebody to flee their home, to flee all to flee torture or death, and then die from the place they wanted. They consider to be the safe haven. It's also become an illusion that Toronto is a sanctuary city, as Mayor Olivia Cho stated in her maiden speech. A city where hopes and dreams come true. I think Mayor was challenged during the first month of her term to say that that is when we had the crisis take the stage. It was also disappointing to see that the people who are in need are made to be the political football. The city says that, or states that refugees are a federal responsibility. The federal government, the feds, failed to come have their boots on the ground at the time when they were most needed. The provincial government looking on what's taking the stage. But I believe in the power of unity and cooperation and solidarity. And I believe that all these three levels of government are responsible for the refugee housing crisis that the world saw, or that we are seeing or experiencing and witnessing. And I want to mention that thank you to the federal government, thank you to the city, thank you to the provincial government for opening COHAB, Canada Ontario Housing Benefit. As I mentioned in my story, showing you how showing you how it was the help or the help with the help with the housing fees or rental fees from the Ontario Works was not enough to find me a place because of the high cost of living, of the high rent increase. I want to say to you that programs like the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit, that program is partly responsible for the housing crisis that we saw. Why? The provincial government closed the Canada Ontario Housing Benefit when it was most needed. And because of the struggles we faced to find a house, to find a work permit, to integrate economically so that one can afford rent, those struggles made people fear to leave the shelters. So, of course, the shelters are a landing spot and transitioning place where somebody can find a warm welcome and a smooth transition with the help of housing workers, with the help of settlement organizations. But you look at where your caseworker, your housing worker sends you to find a house which is costing $600, which you can't find. You end up staying in the shelters. These people, the asylum seekers who were in the shelters, filled the shelters and would not move out of the shelters. And what would that mean? It would mean that there was a high demand for shelters with a little supply, So those who came into the country, Canada, into the city of Ontario, found the shelters full. So whose role was that? If this service, if Co-op is a service of the provincial government, it means that provincial government is responsible. We look at the city's budget to run the shelter system should be revised, and of course this is money which comes from the federal government. Justice delayed is justice denied. Canada, we can do better than this. We wouldn't wait to see a person die, and yet there are many dying, of course, across the world. I want to mention that thanks to the government for finally coming to respond with the 7 million funding to the Peel region. But as I have seen responses from government, there's still a gap. For example, the first funding that came to the city of Toronto, there were news that made us cry, that the first funding in response to the refugee housing crisis covered the debts that the city has with the provincial government, with the feds. And what would that mean? Were the refugees used to demand the feds of what they had to, of what they were owing the city? So it means that the communities, answering the question of settlement, the question of warm welcome and smooth transition. I want to mention that the communities doing the work are still disempowered. They are not funded to do the job. Why? Because of mishandling and misappropriate of funds. Disproportionality too is still a question. As I know, and you know, that Canada is a very, very, very large country. It's a very is a big country with big spaces. We can state it that we are not lacking spaces, but what we are lacking is the knowledge or the sympathy, the empathy within us. And the line between us is who shares what. The question of who. When you look at people, when they are like, when you look at, for example, when you go to Kipling, you'll find a lot of people in the lines entering Canada. What I mean that within those numbers, you'll find different colors. But when you go on the streets of 129 Peter Street, you'll find a lot of people from the African descent, or the racialized people, taking the stage of, experiencing housing issues, refugee housing crisis, or homelessness. And the question is that where do others go when they arrive Canada? There are those who are settled like the masters, and those who suffer like the peasants. Is that the Canada that we want? Is that the Canada that we want our children to live in? Because this is, we are here to stay and make this our home, away from home, and prepare it for our children. So what I want to mention with this is who is responsible? You and I are responsible. If we come together to demand not just our rights, but to do what is right, we can get to the right place. I appeal to the government to understand the role of grassroots organizations, whether these are churches or mosques or shrines. They understand. They are our homes, even if they are rented. But how long will they stay rented before they collapse? We need capacity building of grassroots organizations. We need to empower the grassroots organizations. Let us reflect on our brothers and sisters, the Ugandan Indians or the Ugandan Asians, after being expelled by Idi Amin. We want to appreciate the role of different countries that hosted them, including Canada. In 1972, we had, the world saw the Department of Immigration that time reaching out, going on ground to process the coming of the Ugandan Indians, Ugandan Asians to this place. As a person who attended the Beyond Resettlement conference in Ottawa at Carleton University in November last year, I was chanced to listen to stories of how they were helped to settle in. And I want to mention that this was just a decree by Idi Amin. It means that absence of war does not mean peace. Thank you to the Canadian government for reaching out to countries like Ukraine and Afghanistan and Israel. Currently, Israel, standing with the people from with Israel, standing with Israel. But I want to say to you that, I'm speaking to you, Canadian government, that stating that beware that as as a dad who is parenting us, there are issues of selective justice that we see in this cause. And it creates even more wounds when we see certain groups having a warm welcome and smooth transition, and others are left on their own to just find their way and die in a place where they came to find a safe haven, a safe haven. Speaking this to remind you that as Canada was able to evacuate the Ugandan Indians in a place when there was no physical war, it means that even today that is happening in different parts of the world. It's not only in Ukraine where there is a physical war, or in Gaza that needs attention. We know the position of Canada in the United Nations, and if Uganda is a member country of the United Nations, if Congo is a member country of the United Nations, why do we see justice for some and not justice for all? So I'm speaking this to really to awaken Canadians to understand, or to reflect on the human race as a collective, not just the white race, or not just the African race. We want all to thrive and survive and prosper and to be happy in this world. The Ugandan Indians today, they came from Uganda like other indigenous Uganda who joined Canada. But yes, you will research and find that their settlement have made them shine away from home. How somebody is welcomed and resettled will determine if they are to shine or if they are to, what's the opposite of shining? If they are to make it or not. If you are there to be Canadians, or to become Canadians, or to feel they are Canadians, or to be out of place. So, looking at the issue of language, or what you can call the community cultural wealth that the Ugandan Indians had, of course, it gave them a better beginning, a better new beginning than the beginning we have. And how do we make it? How do we make it here? There's need to revisit the policies. I think the policies in settlement are working for some people and really not working for other people. That is what I can say.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on social media, and for more information, check out our website.